Hey, Craig, how you feeling?
I'm feeling great.
What does your Grand Seiko say?
Let's see here. It is 3:18. So let me see if I can find this stream. Here, let me refresh this page. See if I can find this. There it is, right there. And we're going to welcome some folks in before we start the entertaining. We're going to, first of all, let me just stop this so that's not playing. And we'll wait for the folks to get in here live. And typically what I'll do is once a few folks get in, we'll do a little audio check, make sure everything's good. We got 3 folks in so far. So if you're in right now, let me know that you're in, and please give us an audio check. Let us know how the audio is sounding. And Kent is going to do a little test. Joe G's here. Joe G's in the house. I'm sporting the snowflake today, the snowflake, and Kent Courtney's in the house. He's going to do some live entertaining, and he's going to take some music history questions. So if you have any music history questions, he's a music historian. So Kent, let's do a sound check. Play a little bit.
Sounds pretty good.
Okay, let's get some feedback from those in the chat. Sounds great. So does Kent's music sound okay, Joe? There's a little delay, so we gotta, wait.
Little delay.
Wait for that little delay. You say beautiful. Does that go for the music also, Joe? The music also. So play a little bit more and sing this time, so he can get your voice and see.
Ah, ce matin, je me trouvais assis sur mon lit, à pleurer avec un cœur ainsi que c'est. Parce que je vais rêver à mes châtis noirs, c'est ce qui fait que mon cœur ainsi que c'est.
Okay, well, there we go. Joe says it's sounding good. It's sounding good. Okay, so explain the first song you're going to do, and first of all, give the folks a little background on yourself.
Okay.
And then explain the first song, and let's roll with the first song.
Okay, Craig. Well, I'm Kent Courtney, and I've been doing music for about as long as I can remember. Ever since I was a little kid, I've been fascinated with music, and I still am. I just came back from doing the Veterans Day ceremony where we actually commemorated the 100th anniversary of the signing of the armistice that ended World War I. And so this was quite a thing that we did up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, right on the banks of the Susquehanna River. So it was a little bit windy there and a little bit chilly, but I had my military-grade long underwear on, which I've since taken off. And
too much information.
I know, but I was toasty warm. And then I come into Craig's house, and he apologizes for keeping it cool. And actually, I was sweating bullets because it was so hot in that. But I pulled that stuff off, and I'm just in wool uniform now, blue wool uniform. Typical of what the Navy had between about the 1850s and up into World War I era.
Now, what's the first song you're going to do?
Well, I started to do that one song as kind of a teaser. Maybe I should finish it. It's a song that, the Cajuns would have known very well, and they still do. It was an old folk song. And when it was recorded in the 1930s by Lawrence Walker, it was traditional but very well appreciated, so he often gets a credit for recording this. And it's a story, and I'll do it in French and in English, of someone who misses their loved one.
And how far back do we know that it dates to, or do we not know the roots?
We don't know the exact roots. The only thing you can say is 1930s guaranteed, but it was an old folk song at that time.
Gotcha. Okay.
What happens with a lot of folk songs is that whoever records it first gets a credit for, quote, writing it.
Yeah.
And so it's not really an accurate credit necessarily. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Lawrence might have put his own spin on it. And, of course, I put my own spin on this, too.
Sure.
I also sing a verse in English, which was certainly not on any of the recordings of this.
All right. Well, take it away.
Ah, ce matin, je me trouvais assis sur mon lit, à pleurer avec un cœur ainsi que c'est. Parce que je vais rêver à mes chers tiges noirs, c'est ce qui fait que mon cœur ainsi que c'est. Après après-midi, je aussi de ma galerie, après guetter le soleil après se coucher. Je m'endors et je m'ennuie de mes chers petits joies, et partir va jamais sans revenir. This morning as I sat on my bed, crying from a dream I had, I was sad thinking of you, my dear dark eyes, and that you're never coming back.
Well done. Well done. And
Thank you.
so what's amazing to me, when Kent performs, and by the way, it's Kent Courtney, KentCourtney.com. When he performs, the wide range of songs that you can perform. So let's demonstrate that with a series of songs here that kind of illustrate that range.
Actually, you know, we can combine things, you know, with that theme and think about in terms of Veterans Day. You know, we've had such a long military tradition, not only in the United States, but also in the British colonies, the French colonies, and, you know, going back over to Scotland and England and France and so forth. Maybe I could do a very old song, Willie's Gone to Melville Castle. Now, this one's barely in English. It's a Scottish song, but it tells the story of a lad going away to join the army and, you know, probably leaving a few girlfriends behind.
Okay.
Willie's gone to Melville Castle, boots and spurs and all, to bid the ladies a farewell before he gaes awa'. Willie's young and blithe and bonny, loved by one and all. Oh, what will all the lassies do when Willie gaes awa'? First he met was Lady Kate, she led him down the hall, and with a sad and sorry heart she let the teardrops fall. And by the fire stood Lady Grace, said ne'er a word at all. She thought that she was sure of him before he gaed awa'. Willie's gone to Melville Castle, boots and spurs and all, to bid the ladies a farewell before he gaes awa'. Willie's young and blithe and bonny, loved by one and all. Oh, what will all the lassies do when Willie gaes awa'? Well, Ben knows ken Lady Bell, good sake, she needna cry. Maybe the lad will fancy me and disappoint ye all. Then down the stairs came Lady Jean, the floor among them all, saying, lassies, trust in Providence, you'll get husbands all. Willie's gone to Melville Castle, boots and spurs and all, to bid the ladies a farewell before he gaes awa'. Willie's young and blithe and bonny, loved by one and all. Oh, what will all the lassies do when Willie gaes awa'? When honest horse rade awa', they gathered round the door, and when he raised his bonnet blue, they set up succor roar. Their cries and tears brought Willie back. He kissed them one and all, saying, lassies, bide till I come hame, and then I'll wed ye all. Willie's gone to Melville Castle, boots and spurs and all, they bid the ladies a farewell before he gaes awa'. Willie's young and blithe and bonny, loved by one and all. Oh, what will all the lassies do when Willie gaes awa'?
Well, well done. You've got applause from Joe, and Joe says he's going to call his ex-in-law. He's a living Pearl Harbor survivor. He's 99 years old. So now,
you know, my grandfather was at Pearl Harbor when the Japanese attacked.
Oh,
He was a
okay.
lieutenant on board the USS Pennsylvania. Now, it turned out on December 6th of 1941, my grandfather's ship, the Pennsylvania, was given orders to leave Battleship Row and to go into dry dock number 2 with the destroyers, the Cason and the Downs. And so they were both put into the dry dock, while at the same time, the USS Arizona is pulled out of dry dock and takes the Pennsylvania's berth. Now, the Pennsylvania and the Arizona were sister ships. They looked
Mhm.
exactly alike. They knew the Japanese spies were watching the ships. And so what they did is they pulled off all identification on the ships. The only thing that was left was the 3-inch lettering around the stern that allowed the boat coxswains to see this was the Pennsylvania. And that was black on gray. So it was very hard to see. You certainly couldn't see it with binoculars. And so what happened was they had no idea which ship was which. And December 6th was a Saturday night. Sailors
Mhm.
out on liberty, Hey, by the way, I'm a Navy veteran, so I know about these things. And it turned out that the headlines back in these United States were Pennsylvania sunk, all hands believe lost. Now, this broke the heart of my family. My mom and my 2 uncles and my grandmother had left Hawaii in September of 1941 on board the commercial liner Lurleen. Now, you don't tell your family to go home unless you know something's about to happen. So this is September, October, November, December. This is like 4 months before the attack, right?
Mhm.
And so they're going back toward San Francisco. They're running with night light security, no lights showing at night. And this is a commercial liner. And they're zigzagging all the way back to San Francisco, just in
Mhm.
case there was a torpedo fired at them. And so here were my mom and uncles and grandmother back in San Francisco crying their heart out, thinking that my grandfather had been killed. And it was 7 days later before they got a postcard saying that he had survived the attack.
Wow. Wow. Now that is history. So there's a question in here. What is past the Jameson? What does that mean?
It is a Irish whiskey. And so
Okay.
it means to pass the Jameson to say,
Okay. So
give me
they're
a little bit of hit of that
so they're
whiskey.
having a little bit of whiskey. Okay. So Lonnie was on the Arizona getting ready to go ashore for some fun. I was in the Navy too, not the American one though.
Mm.
Okay. Which Navy were you in, Joe? All right. And so what is next?
So maybe we should do a quick little hats off to the United States Navy.
Okay.
Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joys, we sail at break of day. Here's to our last night on shore, drink to the foam, until we meet once more. Here's wishing you a happy voyage home.
So he was in the Turkish Navy. So a little shout out to those
Really?
in Turkey. Absolutely. So
Now that's incredible, the history behind the Turkish Navy, especially when you look at Gallipoli and what happened in World War One there. You had the successful defense by the Turkish Navy of the Dardanelles. They did not allow the Navy of Her Majesty, the British Navy, to come through the Dardanelles and pass through what was Istanbul and later rather Constantinople, which became Istanbul. And so the Turkish Navy has a history of heroism and success in naval battles.
well, there you go. All right. Well, maybe Joe was there. We don't know how old Joe is. Maybe Joe
It'd
was
have
there.
to be about 120.
Well, there you go. He's holding up great. All right. So what do we got next?
Okay, well, let's continue our back time travel and look at some of the things that actually caused some of the wars that affected everything from the Ottoman Empire to what's going on today. And if we look back at the British, they had a tendency to try and stir things up every chance they could.
Mm-hmm.
And they certainly wanted to get the Highland clans fighting each other. And like the Campbells and the McDonalds, were against each other anyway. But if the Campbells could take the side of the British, or rather vice versa, the British take the side of the Campbells, they could get the Scottish clans fighting each other and killing each other off, and wouldn't lose any British soldiers. And so this is a true story of the massacre at Glencoe. Snow that sleeps Glencoe and covers the grave of Donald, and cruel were the foes that raped Glencoe and murdered the house of MacDonald. They came from Fort William with murder in mind. The Campbell had orders, King William it signed, put all to the sword, these words underlined, and leave not a life called MacDonald. And cruel is the snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grave of Donald. And cruel were the foes that raped Glencoe and murdered the house of MacDonald. In a blizzard we offered them heat, a roof for their head, dry shoes for their feet. We wined them and dined them, they ate up our meat, and they slept in the house of MacDonald. And cruel is the snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grave of Donald. That raped Glencoe and murdered the house of MacDonald. They came in the night while our men were asleep. This band of Argyles through snow soft and deep, like murdering foxes among helpless sheep, and they butchered the house of MacDonald. The snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grave of Donald. And cruel were the foes that raped Glencoe and murdered the house of MacDonald. Some died in the sleep at the hands of the foe. Some fled in the night and were lost in the snow. Some to accuse him who struck the first blow, but gone was the house of MacDonald. And cruel is the snow that sweeps Glencoe and covers the grave of Donald. And cruel were the foes that raped Glencoe and murdered the house of MacDonald. Aye, they murdered the house of MacDonald.
Well done. And so Joe says he's looking at picking up a Grand Seiko with the gold bezel. So I wonder which model that is. Can you put the model in there that you're shooting for? And of course, I'm sporting the Grand Seiko Snowflake right now on wrist.
It's such a classic, and beautiful watch.
This live show is brought to you by Little Treasury Jewelers. Steve will hook you up if you want a brand new one. I'll tell you what, there are some deals on eBay. If you keep your eyes open and you act fast, sometimes you can get a deal on eBay.
I'd rather get something from a real jeweler. You know what you're getting, and it's also new. You don't know who owned a used eBay watch, and you don't know that it's real.
You got to be careful. The good thing about Grand Seiko is they're pretty hard to fake because the quality is so high. It's not like a machine manufactured watch like a Rolex where anybody can fake them. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much unheard of to fake a Grand Seiko just because they can't do it. They just don't have the skills to do it. So
it's like a Lexus when they put the wood lining in the interior of a Lexus. You know, they have craftsmen who very specialized craftsmen who make that wood in a certain way, get the grain just right so that it can be installed in a Lexus.
Yeah.
The right kind of finish.
Not something that just anybody can fake.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's not like
Yeah.
the plastic you get in some cars.
Okay, so are there any questions for Kent? Just put them in the chat, and in between songs, we will get to them. So let's demonstrate your range a little bit. Let's come up into maybe the 60s or 70s.
1860s or 1960s?
1960s, just to show a little bit of range
okay,
here.
We can do that. Well, we should do something that is a reflection of the times of the Vietnam War. And,
Okay.
you know, there was a lot in the way of war protest, in the way of people wanted peace. I mean, we all want peace. You know, that's something that would be nice to have. But one of the problems with having freedom is that, you know, that everybody wants to take it away. And, you know, I don't know why the human condition is such that we don't leave each other alone. But, you know, there's freedom is something that you always have to fight for. And it's tragic that it's true, but I think this particular song shows the conundrum of, you know, why a defense is so terribly important. Listen, children, to a story that was written long ago about a kingdom on a mountain and the valley folk below. On a mountain was a treasure buried deep beneath a stone, and the valley people swore they'd have it for their very own. Go ahead and hate your neighbor, go ahead and cheat a friend, do it in the name of heaven, you can justify it in the end. Won't be any trumpet blowing on the judgment day, on the bloody morning after one tin soldier rides away. So the people of the valley sent a message up the hill, asking for the buried treasure, tons of gold for which they'd kill. Came an answer from the kingdom, with our brothers we will share all the secrets of our mountain, all the riches buried there. Go ahead and hate your neighbor, go ahead and cheat a friend, do it in the name of heaven, you can justify it in the end. There won't be any trumpet blowing on the judgment day, on the bloody morning after one tin soldier rides away. The valley cried with anger, mount your horses, draw your sword, and they killed the mountain people, so they won their just reward. As they stood beside the treasure on a mountain dark and red, turned the stone and looked beneath it, peace on earth was all it said. Go ahead and hate your neighbor, go ahead and cheat a friend, do it in the name of heaven, you can justify it in the end. There won't be any trumpet blowing on the judgment day, on the bloody morning after one tin soldier rides away.
Fantastic. Now, can you give us a little bit of who wrote that, when it came out, and any details on it?
I wish I could remember. You know, you kind of caught me off guard when we went to the 1960s, so I pulled that out of my head, but the data files didn't come with it.
Gotcha. Okay. So you don't want me to push you into the 70s
Oh,
then?
the Billy Jack. It was from the movie Billy Jack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can't remember the author.
Okay. So you don't want me to push you into the 1970s then?
70s. Got to be something from the 70s.
I'm getting you out of your comfort zone here.
You are.
Well, the end of the war was in the 70s.
It was.
Was there anything towards the end of the war?
Well, they were still singing a whole lot of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Okay.
And so, what I could do, and it might be actually putting together the 80s and the 70s together. This is a Bob Dylan song, I think was very, very early 80s, maybe late 70s. It might qualify as 70s. But I can medley that with a Crosby, Stills, Nash.
Well, isn't that something? We got a little custom work going on here.
There we go. Mama, take this badge off of me. I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark to see. I feel I'm knocking on heaven's door. 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 I'ma put my guns in the ground. Oh, I can't shoot them anymore. The long black cloud is coming down. I feel I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knocking on heaven's door. Knocking on heaven's door. Knocking on heaven's door. I feel I'm knocking on heaven's door. There is a town in North Ontario. Dream, comfort, memory to spare. In my mind, I still need some place to go. All my changes with air. Blue windows behind the stars. Yellow moon on the rise. Big birds flying across the skies. Throwing shadows on our eyes. Leave us helpless, helpless, helpless. Baby, can you hear me now? The chains are locked and tied across the door. Baby, sing with me somehow.
Well, there you go. That was fantastic.
Hey, thank
So we got some more comments in the chat. Joe, he's got to run, but he made a comment that one of the other watch channels, Bluefish, I guess the host is Guy, mentioned our channel, mentioned me, and he said it was
Wow.
a favorable mention. Now,
Hey.
considering that a lot of my videos are a little bit controversial, that's always good to get a favorable mention from another watch channel.
Well, I think controversy makes things interesting. If there were no controversy, it would be like you'd fall asleep.
Well, there you go. We like to call it the way we see it, and some people like it a little bit more sugar-coated than that, right? Like when we say there's a bubble in the Rolex prices, some of these people that have bought like 5 or 6 of them and they're sitting in their safety deposit box, they don't really want to hear that.
Right.
So it is what it is. So let's see what else. Who is this superstar? So explain who you are. Somebody came in since we started.
I'm Kent Courtney, and I specialize in doing like folk music, especially is what I'm known for. I do a lot of things from the 1700s, 1800s, and I just came back from an event in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where we honored the veterans and commemorated the 100th anniversary of the signing of the armistice that ended World War I. Mm-hmm. It was quite an event up there in Harrisburg.
And really, more than just a performer, you're a music historian.
Thank you.
So you can give a lot of the stories behind the music too, which really makes your shows interesting.
Oh, thank you.
To be able to give that insight. So what do we have coming up next?
So, we're bouncing through all of these eras. Why don't we do like a little Harry Belafonte?
Oh, absolutely. My dad used to play that when I was little.
This is a sailor's song.
Now, what year would this be from?
Late 1950s.
Okay, there you go.
But I think everybody covered it after Harry
That was
did
when I was born, late 1950s.
Way down there where the nights are gay and the sun shines brightly on the mountain top, I took a trip on a sailing ship, and when I reached Jamaica, I made a stop. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. Had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. Down at the marketplace you hear ladies cry out while on their heads they bear ackee rice, salt fish are nice, and the sun is fine any time of year. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. I won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. Had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. Sounds of laughter fill the air as the dancing girls sway to and fro. Oh, I must declare my heart is there, though I've been from Maine to Mexico, and I'm sad to say I'm on my way. I won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. Had to leave a little girl in Kingston town.
Oh, there you go. Now, there's a song you do. It's an old one. Is it Green Sleeves or Blue Sleeves? Or
I do Green Sleeves.
What is that? Tell about
It's the one that Henry VIII wrote.
Okay.
Anne Boleyn was the lady who was being honored by this song.
Mm-hmm.
He fell in love with Anne Boleyn. The idea of green sleeves is that you wore green in those days to get pregnant.
Okay.
If you're a bad girl, you wore red. Very important. Pure and innocent, just like a bride would be white.
Okay.
But the green was the thing that was guaranteed to get you pregnant.
Okay. And so when would this song date from?
Oh, the time of Henry VIII. So Henry VIII is 1500s, right?
Okay. Okay. There you go. There's an old one for you, folks.
Alas, my love, you do me wrong to cast me off discourteously. But I have loved you so long, delighting in your company. Green sleeves was my delight. Green sleeves was my heart of gold. Green sleeves was my lady
we go. All righty. Anyone, again, if you have any questions for Kent, just put them down in the chat. And so what do you think? Where do we go from here?
Chaos or community?
We bounced all around here a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you bring where do we go from here? Chaos or community was one of Dr. Martin Luther King's great books.
Okay.
And, it's amazing. He was 50 years ahead of his time when he wrote that.
Okay.
The idea of where are we as a people? You read through where do we go from here, chaos or community, and you realize that, there is a vision of there being unity. I hope in these United States we would be heading that way. And it seems like the pendulum swings back and forth, and I hope we're going toward a time when we can be closer together. So with that thought in mind, here's one that kind of ties together the 1860s. Does anybody see my old friend Abraham? Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seems a good die young. But I just looked around and he's gone. Has anybody seen my old friend John? Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seems a good die young. But I just looked around and he's gone. Has anybody seen my old friend Martin? Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seems a good die young. But I just looked around and he's gone. Did you love the things they stood for? Didn't they try to find some good for you and me? And we'll be free someday soon. It's gonna be one day. Has anybody seen my old friend Bobby? Can you tell me where he's gone? I thought I saw him walking up over the hill with Abraham, Martin, and John. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? Yes, and how many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he goes? Too many people have died. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? is blowing in the wind.
Well, there you go. All right. So now, let's see. You do 16 tons.
No, I don't.
You don't?
It's one of the songs I do not
Oh,
do.
boy, I found a song Kent Courtney doesn't do. All right.
16
Well,
tons
I've got a
of
real
wood
good
you got.
recording of that. Ellie Cook
Really?
did a really good recording of that. We have it on our channel, so if somebody wants to see that. So there's that other song you do, though, where they're picking up the rails.
Oh,
they're building the railroad. Tell the story behind that.
Sure. This is a track gang song, and this is people working on the railroad. And, back in the days before machinery did a lot of the work that we now do, you used to have to get a group of men together, and they would work hard. But when they'd pull a rope, they'd have to pull at the same time. When they'd be, hammering down spikes or moving a crowbar, they'd have to do it at the same time. Very well orchestrated and coordinated activity between, 5, 10, dozen, or even 100 people, working on some kind of job. And so I'll start this off with a track holler.
All right, now explain what he was doing.
So you'd have a person who's in the caller, and the caller would be yelling out all the orders, and the orders would be given in a cadence that'd be associated with some kind of more or less tune. And then once you started to do the work, you'd drive into a real hard song, and they'd all be singing, and it'd be responses like whoa, whoa, whoa. As they're, really trying to take deep breaths and do the work. And when the men would sound that, whoa, together, they would all be pushing on a crowbar or something. And so that the activity was multiplied by however many people that were there.
That's how they got the work done. And this would have been during the Civil War when they were really building out the railroads, and the railroads were very important.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, in fact, Gettysburg's own Herman Haupt one of the engineers that helped build so many of the United States military railroads. So that's some local history right here.
Now, at that point, though, did they already have the steam?
Oh, absolutely.
So when would this be back when they were doing this all by hand? How far back do we have to go?
Oh, just into the 1800s and even into
early,
the 1900s.
So maybe the early 1800s when they were building like the transcontinental.
All through the 1800s and into the 1900s.
Really?
Yeah, there's people power or a very, very strong thing that's gone back for a long time.
Okay, so
how did they get the pyramids built?
Okay, so they were literally manhandling these things even up into the early 1900s. I'm just thinking about when the transition for machinery. Where most of this is done now with machinery. I was just wondering.
Solidly into the 1930s, there was a lot of manual labor still going on.
Gotcha.
With steam power, you needed to, keep those steam engines repaired and working and serviced. But you also needed to keep the tracks, the rails themselves, aligned so that you didn't have derailments. And it's only really in the 1950s and started to get serious with a lot of the rail making or roadbed making machinery where they would actually automate a lot of those tasks.
Okay.
And nowadays, Placer and a whole group of other manufacturers make track machinery that basically you turn it on and, somebody sits in there to make sure it's working properly, but it's the computer telling everything what to do.
Gotcha. All righty. Well, here we go.
Look here, fellas, we've got us a carload of steel to unload. This is a 90-pound steel rail. It's 30 foot long. Good way to get a leg broke, get somebody killed. Now, any man lifting that rail before I say lift, we're going to run him away from here. All right, boys, everybody get ready. Come on down here. Come on down. All right. Whoa, bow down. Whoa, lower away. Whoa. Bow down easy, boys. Head high, boys. Lower it away. Whoa. Look here, fellas, this rail's as crooked as a split rail fence. Now, why don't you get your crowbars on your shoulder, run down about the third joint ahead, and touch it just a little bit north. Oh, boys, can't you line 'em? Shakalaka. Oh, boys, can't you line 'em? Oh, boys, can't you line 'em? See how we go line lining track. All I want is great northern beans, itty bitty woman and my old mule team. Oh boys, can't you line 'em? Shakalaka, oh boys, can't you line 'em? Oh boys, can't you line 'em? See how we go lining track. If on that railroad track, I wouldn't have to break my back. Oh boys, can't you line 'em? Shakalaka, oh boys, can't you line 'em? Oh boys, can't you line 'em? See how we go lining track. If I'd have known my captain was blind, I wouldn't go to work till the clock struck 9. Oh boys, can't you line 'em? Shakalaka, oh boys, can't you line 'em? Oh boys, can't you line 'em? See how we go lining track. If I owned that railroad line, I'd be home by 6:09. Oh boys, can't you line 'em? Shakalaka, oh boys, can't you line 'em? Oh boys, can't you line 'em? See how we go lining track. Boom shakalaka laka, boom shakalaka laka, boom shakalaka laka, boom.
Well, there you go. All righty. So, so where do we go from here?
There we go, chaos or community again. Keep talking about Dr. Martin Luther King. I could mention that this year was the 50th anniversary commemoration of the assassination of Dr. King in Memphis, Tennessee. And AFSCME, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, sent me down to Memphis, Tennessee to go sing. And I sang for a lot of those commemorative events. It was such a blur. They had so much going on down there that they had somebody in a golf cart riding me around from place to place. I'd get out and say, okay, what am I doing here? Okay, these are going to be the teenagers that are coming in, for this kind of program. And then, I'd hurry up and do a quick show that was, that get them riled up. In fact, it was at that particular show as part of those AFSCME events in Memphis this past April that one of the people was so embarrassed after the show that I did, and they said, "I'm so sorry those kids were so loud and just hollering and clapping and everything," And I said, "Oh no, I meant for them to do that. I wanted to get them riled up."
Good.
So, yeah, that was good thing to do.
Well, there you go. All right, so let's see. Somebody says, I'm guessing Mr. Courtney is into reenacting. I said, yes. You do reenacting?
Sure.
And really a whole lot more. I mean, it's the whole music history and a lot more than just the reenacting and a lot more than just Civil War reenacting, too. You do the War of 1812,
right.
A lot of different... Now,
and, reenacting is not just firing a gun or beating a drum. The music that I do at events, and, it could be, like you said, an 1812 event or a colonial event, French and Indian War event. And, the music is a reflection of the culture of whatever time is being recreated at a reenactment. Yeah. Of course, you had people that were shooting at each other, and everybody comes for the battles because they think that's interesting. But I think providing the music, shows a lot of what not only was life like in the camps for the soldiers who happened to be there, but also what was happening back in the homesteads, back in their parlors or around the campfires or, their hearth at home. In a way of singing and participation in the music. Nowadays, we turn on, Spotify or some streaming, and, we turn on the music, we listen to everything. And Leonard Bernstein even said in the 1960s that music was becoming so common, you can even hear it in the elevators in the supermarkets, and that was having a tendency to make people become desensitized to the true effects of music. And when you have to have somebody play music, you're not going to be exposed to it as often as if you can just turn on something recorded. So I think the experience that the people in the 1840s or 30s or whenever, when they listened to music, was very much a high peak experience of their lifetimes.
Well, it's like when we go to a live performance now, it's special. Live music is, there's no substitute for anything recorded, in my opinion. You go to a live performance, especially in somebody's parlor, an intimate setting, and you have a live performance, there's just something very special about that.
Oh, absolutely. And, if you want to look at it in terms of visual entertainment, You know, I don't watch television much at all. I have no broadcast TV, no satellite, no cable, none of that. And so when I go to a movie theater, it blows me away because I'm seeing visual images that are, wow, I'm not desensitized to the moving visual images. And in the same way, you know, my reaction to seeing a movie in a movie theater is kind of like being the person who doesn't listen to recorded music all the time and sees a live performance. It really is a huge deal.
Sure. So let's go to the Civil War time.
Okay.
So what would be popular? What would people want to hear if you were at a Civil War event?
Well, I could do a comedy song that recounts the history of this first part of the Civil War. In fact, up to about the Burnside's debacle at Fredericksburg. And this was actually written as a Southern comedy song. And back in those days, they got every word of this. They understood. If you're a Civil War historian, you'll hear some references that are really cool because you know about this. But a lot of people would, go, "What is this? I don't understand this. What's going on with this song?" But you take it at face value that it was comedy. But it's a fabulous history of the first part of the Civil War.
All right. Well, here we go. Kent Courtney live.
Would you like to hear my song? I'm afraid it's rather long, of the famous song to Richmond Double Trouble, of a half a dozen trips and a half a dozen slips, the very latest bursting of a bubble. Just pretty hard to sing, and like a round ring, is a dreadful knotty puzzle to unravel. But all the papers swore when we touched Virginia shore that Richmond is a hard road to travel. Pull off your overcoat and roll up your sleeves, Richmond is a hard road to travel. Pull off your overcoat and roll up your sleeves, for Richmond is a hard road to travel, I believe. First McDowell, bold and gay, set forth the shortest way by Manassas into pleasant summer weather, but unfortunately ran on a Stonewall foolish man, and he had a rocky journey altogether. And he found it rather hard to ride over Beauregard, and Johnston proved to do himself a bother. And it was clear beyond a doubt that he didn't like the route, and the second time would have to try another. And pull off your overcoat and roll up your sleeves, Manassas is a hard road to travel. Manassas wouldn't do, and Bull Run made us grieve, for Richmond is a hard road to travel, I believe. Next came the woolly horse with an overwhelming force to march down to Richmond by the valley. But he couldn't find the road, and his onward movement showed campaigning was a mere shilly-shally. Then Commissary Banks with his motley foreign ranks, kicking up a great noise, fuss and fury, lost the whole of his supplies, and with tears in his eyes from the Stonewall ran away in a hurry. Pull off your overcoat and roll up your sleeves, the valley is a hard road to travel. The valley wouldn't do, and we all had to leave, for Richmond is a hard road to travel, I believe. Then the great Galena came with her portholes all aflame, and a monitor that famous naval wonder. But the guns at Dray's Bluff gave them speedily enough, allowing a sort of regular rebel thunder. The Galena was astonished, and the monitor admonished, a patent shot and shell were mocked at, while the dreadful target touched by the hardest kind of luck was knocked into an ugly cocked hat. Pull off your overcoat and roll up your sleeves, James River is a hard road to travel. The gunboats gave it up in terror and despair, for Richmond is a hard road to travel, I declare. Then McDowell, bold and gay, set forth their shortest way by Manassas through pleasant summer weather, yet unfortunately ran on a Stonewall foolish man, they had a rocky journey altogether. Sent a Fuzi guard and no guard he found, Longstreet indeed nothing shorter, and put him in the dumps, and spades wasn't trumps, the hills he couldn't level as he ordered. Pull off your overcoat and roll up your sleeves, Longstreet is a hard road to travel. Don't give me much and throw away the spade, Richmond is a hard road to travel, I'm afraid. Then said Lincoln and the boat, you can make the trip, I hope. I will save the universal Yankee nation. To make sure of no defeat, I'll leave no lines of retreat and issue a famous proclamation. Put the same dreaded Jackson, his fellow ladies waxing, and made him by compulsion a seceder. In boat rapid flight from Manassas' second fight was a London bridges tried, a road no one had thought of before him. With 200,000 men for the colonel slaughter pen, that blessed Union flag waving o'er him. He made a pretty guard, presented Beauregard. Johnston proved the deuce of a bother. It was clear beyond a doubt that he couldn't find the route, and the river ran with more blood than water. And pull off your overcoat and roll up your sleeves, wrap a hammock, it's a hard road to travel. Burnside got in a trap, which caused for him to grieve, for Richmond is a hard road to travel, I believe. We are very much perplexed to know who is the next to command the new Richmond expedition. Capital must blaze, and that in 90 days, and Jeff and his men be sent to perdition. We'll take this cursed town, and then we'll burn it down, and plunder, hang up each cursed rebel. Yet the contraband was right when they told us we would fight. Oh, yes, sir, they will fight like the devil. Pull off your overcoat and roll up your sleeves. Richmond is a hard road to travel. Pull off your overcoat and roll up your sleeves. Richmond is a hard road to travel, I believe.
Fantastic. So, the Civil War, it went on for how many years?
Well, from at the very end of 1860 is when South Carolina seceded from the Union.
Okay.
Now, seceded, that's an interesting word in itself. It comes from the Latin secedere, meaning to withdraw. And South Carolina and Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Carolina, and South Carolina all thought they had a right to secede or withdraw from the Union.
Yeah.
They pictured these United States as a gentleman's club. If you didn't like the way some of the gentlemen were acting, you simply resigned for the club.
Yes.
And so those states withdrew and decided to make their own country called the Confederate States of America.
And then what happened?
And so then, of course, Lincoln felt that he was honor bound by the oath that he took when he took office to keep the Union together. And so, knowing that was true, the fort at Sumter, Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor, needed to be resupplied because it had essentially been cut off from everything. And so they tried to send a ship down to resupply Fort Sumter, and it didn't work. And so then it was Beauregard who gave the command to fire on Fort Sumter. It began a bombardment that lasted many hours. And so finally the Fort Sumter, held by the United States Army at the time, surrendered to the Confederates. And at that time they felt that war had been declared and Lincoln had a right to respond to the aggression of the Southerners in Charleston.
So that's really what triggered it. So that'd be around 1860?
That was in 1861.
Okay.
April of 1861.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. All right. So anything else from the Civil War that would be that we should talk about?
Well, if we want to talk about local history happening right around here, it was in 1859 that John Brown led a tiny army down from Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, over to Harper's Ferry. And his plan was to take the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry and pass out the arms to lead a violent overthrow of slavery and setting up an independent country in the Appalachians. And so John Brown did not get very far. In fact, John Brown was captured and was tried and hung for treason. But he became a martyr to the abolitionist cause, and they started singing, "John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave." John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave, and his soul goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul goes marching on. John Brown joined the army of the Lord. John Brown joined the army of the Lord. John Brown joined the army of the Lord, and his soul goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. gal was going to sleep in the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. She had heard some United States Army soldiers singing this song, and she thought she could write better words. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. I've seen him in the watchfires, the 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I can read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His day is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. He has sounded forth the trumpet that shall never call retreat. He is sifting out the hearts of men before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer him. Be jubilant, my feet. Our God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free. Our God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
All right, beautiful. Okay, so we had a little question about the cameras, and so the camera, the tight shot on Kent right now is a Panasonic FZ1000, very affordable camera. It's got the 1-inch Sony sensor in it, and it's got a super zoom fixed lens on it. In other words, you can't change the lens. It's all in one camera. And then if I go back to this shot here, this is the Sony A6500 with the Sony Zeiss lens on it. It's a 24 millimeter f1.8 lens. I think it's at about f4 right now. And then the shot down the strings there, that's a RX100 Sony, again with a 1-inch sensor on it. So, and we don't have an ideal setup here as far as the camera angles and all. We're in a little bit of a tight setting here. This is really designed more for just one person to be broadcasting, but we've kind of made it work.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing. So I introduced you to another rising star, Sarah, Cowgirls Live. You saw one of her videos today.
Yes, she did a super job.
So
over at Catoctin Mountain Orchard.
She shot it at the Catoctin Mountain Orchard. She shot the A-roll there.
Yeah.
And with her iPhone, with the Shure MVI mixer.
Yeah.
And a handheld ENG style mic, Electro Voice. And that's her first video. I think she's going to be a superstar. I really think she's going to do well. And the subject matter, those barrel racers that race those horses around those barrels, that's no joke.
Oh, my word. That's one of the hardest kind of things to do.
That's no joke. So that's going to be interesting. So, folks, follow her at Cowgirls Live on all the platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Cowgirls Live. Check that out, and we'll be putting some of her videos up here on Mid-Atlantic TV on our YouTube channel here.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about Instagram. How does Instagram work?
That's a real good question. To tell you the truth, I don't know why it's gotten so popular, because unlike other platforms, you can't put a URL on a post. So if you post a photo, for example, and you want to say, check out Kent Courtney, and I want to put, http://KentCourtney.com, right? And on a lot of platforms, that'll make that a hot link. On Flickr, on YouTube. Years ago, they didn't allow you to do it on YouTube, but you can now.
Right.
And, of course, Facebook, you can put hot links, but you can't do it on Instagram.
Really?
So it's really good for people just sharing photos. Really, it's more like just a photo sharing site. But what made it popular was it's so easy to do on your phone, and you can add those filters to take a typical cell phone photo and make it look halfway decent.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's, I think, really why it took off. But from a business standpoint, it's not as usable when you can't put those hot links in there.
Oh, that makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah, the hot links would be the key to it. Like I'm sure you're going to put hot links down below here to like Kent Courtney.com.
That's right. That's right.
Like that.
That's right. So people will be able to get to you and all that. So it's okay. We've got about 16,000 followers on my Instagram. And what I do is I simply take the most popular photos from my Flickr stream. When I'm on my phone, I'll just go to Flickr and I'll click on, the notifications, and it'll show me, photos that people have been favoriting and all that. And so I'll just grab one of those and just share it over, because I've got thousands and thousands of photos. So I don't have to repeat, the photo. So I just let the community on Flickr curate and suggest what I should put on Instagram by their actions.
Sure.
And of course, a lot of them tend to be attractive females. Imagine that. So there's that.
Photographers are just followed around by attractive females for some reason.
So I just happen to have a lot of those photos on there, and so the theme on my Instagram is fitness and beauty. Fitness and beauty, because I think those things go hand in hand. People take care of themselves, they're going to look better, they're going to be healthier. It all just snowballs on itself. So and of course they're all family friendly photos, but they're all there. So check it out. I got 16,000 followers. So I keep picking up followers for some reason on my Instagram. Figure that.
I think fitness is very important nowadays. Boys and girls. It's every morning. One of the first things that I do is I start my exercise routine in the morning. My oxygen going into my bloodstream, and that wakes me up better than anything.
Well, a large percentage of the kids are obese these days. It's very sad, and it can lead to early onset diabetes and all kinds of health problems.
Juvenile diabetes is on the rise
for your whole life. So it is something important. So, okay, well, let's move on to more cheerful topics. So what do you think? We should probably get ready to wrap up here pretty soon. What would be some of your most popular songs that you'd like to share to wrap up?
Well, maybe I should do something from my own United States Navy career and tell a little story about Olongapo in the Philippines.
Okay.
Subic Bay and QP Point were naval installations. In fact, Subic Bay, I understand, is still going strong out there in the Philippines. And it's a wonderful, perfect, idyllic harbor. It looks like it, came out of some, movie. It's just got the beautiful green mountains all around it. A few islands in the middle of the bay, and it's very well protected harbor from storms and things like that. But it's also a great place to shelter a lot of ships, and so naturally, there's been a support town that grew up alongside it. That multi-generational people have supported Subic Bay. A lot of sailors got married to those ladies. Filipino girls are so pretty, and so this is a story that you've probably heard, but really didn't know the whole story what's behind it.
Okay.
There's a port on a western bay, and it serves 100 ships a day. Lonely sailors pass the time away, and they talk about their homes. There's a girl in this harbor town, and she works
Now, that was actually about that particular bay?
About Olongapo, yeah, Subic Bay in the Philippines.
It really was, that song?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Cool.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, look it up, Subic Bay.
Okay.
And Google it and look for Olongapo, and you'll see some of the stories there. Most of them that the sailors tell, you don't want to believe. But...
Oh, there you go. All right, so what do you think? One more before we wrap up?
We sure could do one.
What are you thinking?
Well, as long as we're in the Western Pacific, we'll do another Western Pacific kind of song.
Okay. And by the way, if anybody has a request, put it in the chat, because otherwise we're going to wrap here pretty soon. Okay.
Traveling in a fried out combi on a hippie trail full of zombie. I met a strange lady. She made me nervous. She took me in and gave me breakfast. And she said, "Do you come from the land down under, where women glow and men chunder? Can't you hear the thunder? You better run, you better take cover. I'm bred from a man in Brussels. He was 6'4" and full of muscles. I said, "Do you speak my language?" He just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich. And he said, "I come from the land down under, where women glow and men chunder. Can't you hear the thunder? You better run, you better take cover." Lying in a den in Mumbai with a slack jaw and not too much to say. I said to the man, "Are you trying to tempt me? Because I come from the land of Bundy." And he said, "Do you come from the land down under? Oh yeah, where women glow and men chunder. Can't you hear the thunder? You better run, you better take cover."
There you go. So you see here we've been live for an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
We're at 4,900 so kilobits per second, 1080p.
Mm-hmm.
So, a year or two ago, I'd had this dumbed down to 720
Yeah.
because it wouldn't really handle the 1080.
They couldn't stream anything above it.
But I'll tell you, we're getting pretty good to be able to stream at that bit rate.
That is amazing. Now, what happens if somebody's got kind of a slow service? Do they still...
That's the problem. That's why I had this dumbed down, because I didn't have enough upstream bandwidth. It would buffer. We'd start having problems, right?
Well, what about the downstream? If you're running at 1080p and I've got kind of bad internet connection,
YouTube will automatically adjust the download speed to what you can get it at.
Oh, okay.
So it'll go all the way down to 360p. And I think you can even make it just do the audio only if it gets to where you really have a bad connection. But yeah, it'll automatically, it'll first probably buffer, and then it'll realize, okay, you don't have enough, you can't do it, so it'll start stepping it down.
So you get to
it does the same thing on Netflix. Mm-hmm. If you're watching Netflix and it's a 4K stream, if you don't have enough bandwidth to handle the 4K, it'll kick it down to 1080p, and so on.
Yeah.
Until it gets to where it'll handle it.
Yeah, especially if you've already gotten throttled, you got a hotspot and you've used 10 gigs or whatever you've gotten.
Yeah.
There's no saving you at that
But
point.
I'll tell you, with 5G around the corner, all these problems are going to be solved.
Yeah.
Where this bandwidth issue, it's already starting to go away.
Yeah.
It's already getting to the point where the 4G really performs well. Mm-hmm. And this 5G is going to be that next step. And there are going to be a lot more unlimited plans. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully this bandwidth situation bottleneck is going to go away.
Yeah, that throttling is a real total pain.
Yeah. So, okay, maybe a sea shanty now. Something for us sailors.
All right, shipmate, we can do that.
All right, one more.
'Twas Friday morn when we set sail, and we were not far from the land, when the captain spied a lovely mermaid with a comb and a glass in her hand. Oh, the ocean waves do roll, and the stormy winds do blow, while we brave tars go skipping to the tops, while the landlubbers lie down below, below, below. Oh, the landlubbers lie down below. Then up spoke the captain of our gallant ship, and a well-spoken old man was he. His fishy mermaid has warned me of our doom. We shall sink to the bottom of the sea. All the ocean waves do roll, and the stormy winds do blow, while we brave tars go skipping to the tops, while the landlubbers lie down below, below, below. While the landlubbers lie down below. Then up spoke the mate of our gallant ship. He was a well-spoken sailor, they say. I have me a sweetheart in Chesapeake by the bay, and tonight with someone else she lay. All the ocean waves do roll, and the stormy winds do blow, while we brave tars go skipping to the tops, while the landlubbers lie down below, below, below. While the landlubbers lie down below. Then up spoke the cook of our gallant ship, and a greasy old sailor was he. I care much more for me sausage and me punch than I do for the bottom of the sea. Oh, the ocean waves do roll, and the stormy winds do blow, while we brave tars go skipping to the tops, while the landlubbers lie down below, below, below. While the landlubbers lie down below. Then up spoke the cabin boy of our gallant ship, and a dirty little brat was he. It's nearly a soul in Tybee by the sea, who cares a squid for me. All the ocean waves do roll, and the stormy winds do blow, while we brave tars go skipping to the tops, while the landlubbers lie down below, below, below. While the landlubbers lie down below. Then 3 times around spun our gallant ship, yes, 3 times around spun she. Oh, 3 times around spun our gallant ship, and she sank to the bottom of the sea. All the ocean waves do roll, and the stormy winds do blow, while we brave tars go skipping to the tops, while the landlubbers lie down below, below, below. While the landlubbers lie down below.
All right. Well done. Well done.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So let's go back through all your contact information, how people can follow you on social media, all that kind of good stuff.
Oh, sure. It's all, it circles around Kent Courtney. So you have KentCourtney.com is my webpage, and that's kind of the home of everything. And in fact, there you'll even see links to things like Earth Music Radio, and some of the other projects that I have.
Okay.
And then on Facebook, it's facebook.com/ you guessed it, Kent Courtney.
Good move. Good move.
And same thing with all the other things too. I have also a project called Metrograde, which does a lot of the more modern things, kind of a dub techno sound. And you can actually go onto Spotify, and if you look for The Prophet, and you go The Prophet Metrograde, then you're gonna call up the latest thing that I've put on there. You'll see a soldier as the picture on that one, and it's a plea for peace in the Middle East. So
wow. Well, there you go.
It's a good thing to keep Spotify, iHeart, Pandora. It's on all of those. The Prophet Metrograde is how you search for it. There are a lot of songs named The Prophets that are different. The Prophet Metrograde.
Well, there you go. And I'm at CraigShipp on everything. And so we're going to wrap this broadcast. I appreciate everybody tuning in and the folks that interacted in the chat and all that kind of good stuff. And anything else you want to say before I push this button?
Are we going to wrap?
We're going to wrap.
We'll open the door and let the people in because the Double Trouble crew is about to begin. We put the F and finesse and the P and pizzazz, and we're going to have a thing for all that jazz.
I didn't know you did rap too. There you go. So now watch how I do this. This is super cool. Watch this. I'm going to press this button right here, the stop button.
Yeah.
It's going to ask me,
you
may stop or complete the event. See, if I stop it, we could actually restart again.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
That's pretty incredible.
That's pretty incredible, isn't it? But I'm going to say complete event because that way it'll wrap it and it'll get it ready as a video on your channel, ready to be watched as an archive.
Outstanding.
Whereas if I do this stop, then it's not archived yet because it's still an ongoing event. It's just kind of paused.
So I could put that on the Earth Music Radio Facebook page.
You can absolutely do that. You can share the URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say complete event. And it says complete event. And then we'll